you remember over and over how horrifying it was that the Trump administration put kids in cages. That became a rallying cry. Trump is a fascist. Some Broadway star tweeted out, my daughter came up to me after Biden won and said, no more kids in cages. And we cried tears of happiness and tears of sadness. Well, now I wonder if they're crying some more that kids are back in the same facilities that the Trump administration utilized at the border. And remember, the so-called cages, which were really partitions or fencing or whatever you want to call it, to keep kids away from bad guys who were mules and, rapists and criminals. You don't want kids to be housed with adults, so they had to separate them. Oh, you're ripping children from family. Well, now they're doing the same thing in the Biden administration. But it's COVID, so it's okay, because everything is excusable under COVID. These hypocrites are so brazen. I mean, it's one thing after another, and it's coming it's coming crashing down in light speed. It's amazing. Only Peter Doocy, the Fox News correspondent, was able to ask Jen Psaki yesterday, well, wait a minute, you're using the exact same facilities. So you were screeching about kids in cages on the Trump administration. Why is it not kids in cages now? Listen to this exchange. Cut number 3. Here's the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, answering Fox News Channel's Peter Doocy.
Let me give a broader description of what's happening here. We have a number of unaccompanied minors, children who are coming into the country without their families. What we are not doing, what the last administration did, was separate those kids, rip them from the arms of their parents at the border. We are not doing that. That is immoral, and that is not the approach of this administration. These kids, we have a couple of options. We can send them back home and do a dangerous journey back. We are not doing that either. That is also putting them at risk. We can quickly transfer them from CBP to these HHS-run facilities. That's one option. Or we can put them with families and sponsors without any vetting. There were some problems that process ran into as well. We've chosen the middle option.
The middle option. Now, I want you to try to follow this bouncing ball. Pabs, will you play the beginning of Jen Psaki's babbling, nonsensical answer? I want you to hear what she just, and we're going to stop it a few seconds in. This is so comical because this was what the Trump administration tried to say. You got kids who have been brought across the border by these mules, by these horrible people who are exploiting kids. You got adults who are pretending that children are their kids, but they're not. They're strangers, but they need the money. That's what the Trump administration tried to say for 4 years, right? Now listen to the answer that this White House press secretary attempts to foist upon the American people. This absolute contradiction, this garbage, nonsensical hypocrisy. Listen again.
Let me give a broader description of what's happening here. We have a number of unaccompanied minors, children who are coming into the country without their families. What we are not doing, what the last administration did, was separate those kids, rip them from the arms of their parents at the border. We are not doing that. That is immoral.
Think about that. We have unaccompanied minors coming across the border into the country. Unaccompanied. I'm not, listen, I don't have a bunch of degrees after my name. I think unaccompanied means they're without their parents. But then she says, what we're not doing is ripping them from, and they love that phrase. It's not separation. It's not isolating children from predator adults potentially. It's ripping them from the arms They're not even just ripping them from their proximity. It's their arms. You could just see it, right? Ripping these little children from the arms of their mothers and fathers. Hey, will you answer me a question? How do you rip a child from the arm of the parent if the parent isn't around? Do you think this lady thinks we're not listening to her answers? Do you think she doesn't think that anybody's hearing these press conferences? Play it one more time, please, and then somebody always will. You call me at 800-655-MIKE and explain the apparent contradiction of the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki.
Let me give a broader description of what's happening here. We have a number of unaccompanied minors, children who are coming into the country without their families. What we are not doing, what the last administration did, was separate those kids, rip them from the arms of their parents at the border. We are not doing that. That is immoral, and that is not the approach.
Separate, and then she told herself, "Oh, that doesn't sound so bad, does it?" Because that's what rip them from the arms. Didn't rip them from the leg. Didn't rip them from the hip. You're not ripping them from the shoulder. You're ripping them from the arms because the illegal parents' arms are holding the children, and Republicans rip those children from the arms. We're going to use the middle option because of COVID, because everything's because of COVID. And incidentally, COVID is now so pervasive, you can't get anything on time anymore because everything's COVID. Do you get the sneaking suspicion that companies and businesses use COVID as the excuse for poor customer service? Do you get that feeling? It's the funniest thing. I've been buying a little bit of furniture for a new place, and everything. Oh, we'll get it in June, get it in July. What do you mean June or July for a console table? Yeah, COVID. We can't order. Go order something. Try ordering from Crate and Barrel or any of these big box stores that carry furniture. Good luck. Well, it's COVID. The manufacturing supply chain is all gone. But gosh, won't it be great? I wonder what they're going to do, what excuse they're going to use when COVID's over. Anyway, because of COVID, the Biden administration will use the middle option. The middle option means they're going to use the exact same facilities that the Trump administration used, but they're going to call them by a different name in the hopes that nobody will notice.